What's up, folks? I want to talk about my CI Lightning Doryani's prototype, Raider, Flicker Striker. There's a whole lot of words that go here, but we're just going to go from the very top and talk out through all the things. This is very much trying to be as much of a budget version as possible. I created this to kind of do wave 30 simulacrums because I was looking at the builds that could do it, and the ones that were doing it didn't interest me. This idea did, however, because Doryani's is a really fun item to build around, and because of the Scourge mechanic, we do have a lot of these cool minus lightning resist things available. It's definitely a good time to jump on it. Now, I'm going to show you a map real quick, but I mean, it's Flicker Strike. You know what Flicker Strike looks like. Yeah, I don't have to explain to you how Flicker Striking works. You walk in a map, you walk a little bit forward, and you find your first enemy, which takes a while, and then you just right-click and go. You know, and you right click and go, and you right click and go. Now, while we're Flicker Striking, I can talk about stuff. Because of our flask, we have 163,000 armor, so we're pretty thick. That's why we don't have to worry about much of our lightning resist issues. We also have a lot of fire resist and cold resist from having the two flask up here for more mitigation, so those are much more tankier there as well. We are CI, so we have chaos immunity. We have the ability that is Flicker Strike's best defensive trait, which is you're not where the thing died anymore. So things that are on death, explosions and such, unless you're going to go pick up loot, you don't have to worry about those. That's always fun. You are really, really thick in this build. And that's honestly been one of the best things about it, is that it's really chill to play. Because of the fact that you kind of just sit back and hold right click and things die, as long as Flicker Strike doesn't make you sick, it's really, really good at what it's supposed to do. Now, I did level this character originally as Lightning Strike, for I do stream, and streaming with Flicker Strike is always kind of a problem, because it doesn't look super great on Twitch and stuff like that, so I was hoping to not have to, you know, do Flicker Strike, but I ended up doing Flicker Strike in the end. When it comes to single target, I'll show you a little bit of the mechanic that goes into it. So you got your totems, and then you put down your Hydrosphere, and then when you Flicker Strike on something with a Hydrosphere, you do double your damage because of a Divergent Melee Splash. And I'll go over all that here now. So, let's talk the version of the build that I'm running and how everything ended up falling together. So, of course, we are instacking, because that gives us a massive amount of energy shield. And as a result of our instacking, we do go Hands of Wisdom and Action. Now, all the pieces that you see with minus lightning resist gear, I basically kept on the market, actively watching, trying to get them as cheap as possible. So this was 2x, this was 2x, this was 3x, and this was 2x, I believe. And those are prices that are very, very low. I was trying to make this as budget as possible for myself to not spend too much money, because I didn't have a whole lot when I started this character. So we are Hand of Wisdom in action. We are going those minus lightning resist. That way we get to this sweet minus 200 lightning resist, which is the current cap. We run Shaper's Touches as well. This gives us a lot of good stuff for the int that we're stacking. So because we have a lot of int, we get a lot of evasion rating, and because we are IR, Iron Reflexes, we then convert that to armor, and that gives us our lightning defense. So in town, sitting here with no flask up, we have 78,000 armor, and then when we pop our flask, we have 143, and then Molten Shell adds 147, and then so on and so forth. It goes up a little bit more as we kill stuff and activate certain buffs and barriers and things like that for ourselves. So our evasion rating is then converted to armor rating, and we just become really thick, and that way we mitigate the downside of Doryani's prototype, which is the armor that you take lightning hits against your armor. Now, that does have a problem with things like research for betrayal. The beams that spawn in there, those are lightning degens. Eradicator in his arena, not in the Maven fight, but in his arena, will do lightning degen beams. Shaper does lightning degen beams, and Baron does lightning degen squares. Those are the four things that are kind of the most terrifying for this build, and honestly one of the reasons that when I do Eradicator or something on him, I do switch. I go to one of my other characters and just pop Eradicator himself. Or Baron I can still do because I know the fight well enough. I know how to put the beams and squares where I want them to do. Eradicator is just a little bit of a problem because he does kind of just spawn the beam out of nowhere, and you have like half a second to respond. So those are the weaknesses of the build, because we do not do any conversion as we're running Astramentus. Once again, a minus lightning resist Astramentus. A lot of these minus lightning resist that I have on my gear are on the uniques, and that's because those are the easier ones to get them on, right? Those are the ones I could buy in mass, put in my crangulator, and crangulate. As you can tell, I was crangulating another Aegis Aura in there in the background, and because of the fact that those are always able to be crangled, I got a bunch that I was waiting on. You can keep working on it slowly with the cheaper pieces, something like the Shaper's Touch. If you don't go for the +1 max frenzy or something like that, you just buy Shaper's Touches, you could just throw those in there and just keep going as you level up the character if you don't have the money to buy them, because 2x a piece of gear, that's kind of pricey. So it's very doable to slowly work your way up to it. I started the build with very little invested. I did wave 26 simulacrum with 11x invested into the build, and you could probably get away with cheaper if you wanted to as well. We run Aegis Aura. This gives us the ability to get our armor back as ES, and this is the big thing. This is the reason that you run the large chunk of armor in this build, is because whenever you block, you get 2% of your armor back as energy shield on block. So every time you're blocking, and since we have 70-72 block due to being glancing blows, we get a lot of our ES back constantly, and that lets us kind of AFK things like Simulacrum and other bosses as well, because we gain a lot of our life back every single second, every time we get hit. It's really, really good defensively. In terms of the rest of the gear, it is your bog standard int stacking gear. So we've got the intelligence belt, the synthesis intelligence belt, picked up the base for 2x, and then smashed it with some essences, landed this one, kept it, sweet. That's all I cared about. Basically none of my gear did I spend and go out and do the big one, the big tier 1 base. This is the tier 2 base. This is the tier, these were like 10-20 C a piece here. This one I self-crafted. We'll go over all that, but none of my gear was on the most expensive version of the item, because you can get things like synth rings have intelligence, and those are 25x for the base. I wasn't spending that type of money. I don't care. I don't need it. I've done wave 30 very well on this character without spending that type of money. So you buy yourself a synthesis base, put some attribute catalyst on it, and hit it with a deafening of spite. That gives you what you want. Very easy, very simple. Same thing with the rings. I've got 2 rings that have fractured resistances. Both of them are 2 stones, but you could just as well go with a fire or a ruby or a sapphire with a fracture of either of the ore. And then I just hit them with deafenings of spite until I landed the other resist. So tier 2 something, tier, whatever you need. As you can tell, I'm overcapped, so you don't need to go for tier 2 specifically. But I hit them with essences until I got intelligence, and then the other resist. In both of my cases, I got lightning resist, so I had to go to harvest to change it over to the other resist, and then I just built 2 of those rings. Very simple rings to get in there, and then I just crafted an energy shield on top of them. Same thing with the boots. Just hit them with intelligence. The essences, I don't know how that's a hard word for me to say. I hit them with intelligence essences, landed something with a bit of evasion rating, movement speed, and a craftable resist. I can then fix my resist wherever I need them, move it around as I desire to. These are the Storm Rider boots because of the Shaper's Touches, because we gain 4 accuracy per 2 intelligence. We do have a lot of accuracy, so we do use that to give ourselves a little bit more lightning damage. It's just another barrier, a buffer on top. There's other choices for boots if you want to go that route, but this is the route I chose, and it works really well. And of course, the enchants on there, if you really want to go ham on it. I just accidentally happened to pick it up while I was running to try to get my helm enchant, which we'll go into here, which is I have a punishment duration helm enchant. I tried to get the helm enchant I wanted, and it was really, really difficult. I just never landed it, so I ended up having to just choose one of the ones I found and put it on there. The way I made the helmet is very, very simple. I picked up a level 78 Hubris Circuit. You could pick up anything from 75 to 79 if you don't care about the enchant. That's the main thing here. If you don't care about the enchant, you can pick up a 75 to 79 Hubris Circlet uninfluenced. And what you can then do is you just hit it with the essences of spite, which, intelligence essences, these boys right here. You hit it until you have your prefixes kind of what you want. So I landed at tier 1 and a tier 3 that I crafted on there. My prefixes were full. Because my prefixes are full and I had an empty suffix, that's the big thing here. I had to annul to get the empty suffix. If you would then hit it with a Hunter's Exalted Orb, The only suffix that can land when you are between the item levels of 75 and 79, specifically for me, I chose 78 because you get the tier 2 hybrid, tier 1 or tier 2 hybrid energy shield roll, but that's just like wishful thinking. And these cost like 3C. So if you hit it with the item level 75 to 79 with a Hunter's Exalted Orb, the only 2 rolls you can get on your suffixes when your prefixes are full is tier 1 or tier 2 intelligence. So in my case, it took me 3 helmets to land a tier 1 intelligence. So I made my first one at level 68, got a tier 2 intelligence. I wore that till 92. I then tried to make another one because I found a Hunter's Exalted Orb, made another tier 2. I then sold that tier 2 helmet for 4x, so I profited off of making that helmet. And then I bought another Hunter's Orb and went for this one, and I landed this one, and this is the one I've been wearing. Then I sold my previous helmet, which was a tier 2, for 4x as well. So for me, making the helmet was way, way cheaper by just doing it this way and foregoing the enchant. If you want to go big dick, if you want this to be the best build ever, then of course you could go for the enchant first, go for the fossils, catalyst, whatever, or go this way and then go lab farming. Either way, both are viable options. As far as how the linkage is working, that's pretty much the gear in a nutshell. The only thing that's left is, of course, we've got Threads of Hope. For me, I had to buy one -20 Thread of Hope because this is where it gets a little bit expensive. I think there's like 1.5x. I had to buy one because that just gave me that one extra that I needed for the -200, so it looked nice and clean. So I went to a -20 here. This one's a -19 large, and then this one down here is a -19 large as well. And the final piece of the puzzle is, of course, a intelligence cluster, large cluster up here with a little bit more. This could be way bigger if I was to push the build higher. If I wanted to go to like 100, then this would be a much, much bigger cluster with a much more intelligence on it. For now, though, I don't get my characters above 94, so I just chucked it in here and called it a day. The cheap alternative is the +5 intelligence, +40 accuracy split personality. These are 5C, very cheap, at least they were when I bought them. The expensive option is the +5 intelligence, +5 maximum energy shield. These are not cheap. These are like 7x or something. I found this one on my second or third wave 30 attempt, and I had already cleared wave 30 having 2 of these in there doing simulacrum just fine, and then this one dropped, so I just put it in. I did not buy this. I did not need it to do wave 30. I just chucked it in at the end because I happened to get one, and I probably will end up selling it. I just don't need it. And then down here we have ourselves another large cluster. This time we've got Prodigious Defense and Fuel the Fight. This is our Mana Leech, but I guess we do have Feed the Fury here for our actual Life Leech because we are Ghost Reaver. Sorry if I'm bouncing around. This is the second time I've recorded this video. And then to make sure that we can fit in our energy, our reservations, we do have to run 2 energy efficiency ones, one for self-control and one just a basic standard increased effect with some intelligence on it so that we can get all our auras in. This is with an Enlighten 3, which are about 2x right now, and it still works. You do not have to spend the money on an Enlighten 4 if you can get your rolls here to be, you know, the 7% rolls here and get self-control there. You do not have to spend the money on an Enlighten 4. I know those are like 17x right now. This is 2x. You can get one of these most likely. Now, in terms of the actual linkage, we are Whirling Blades, Clarity, Hydrosphere. Hydrosphere is very important for this build because we use a divergent melee splash. You can use normal melee splash to get going, but what ends up happening is when you put down a Hydrosphere and you flicker strike on top of the Hydrosphere using a divergent melee splash, you end up reflecting the damage off the Hydrosphere onto the boss. So you're essentially doubling your DPS because divergent only gives you a -1% less damage to surrounding targets versus a normal Hydrosphere, which gives you a -40% less damage to surrounding targets. So this one is a 40% more, and then you double up your damage from the Flicker Strike. It's really, really important for single target to have that. Put it on the boss, and then go ham. So you go 1, 2, 3, and then go ham on the boss, and you're good to go. So that's really important. That's like a 4x upgrade. Once you start pushing into wave 27, 28, 29, 30, that's probably when you need that to get through Kosises and things like that effectively. So you're going to end up picking that up then. Damage on full life, because we're always full life. We are CI, so no brainer there. Flicker Strike, of course. You could buy a 20, 23 very cheaply. You get yourself an Awoken added lightning damage. In my case, that's the one I use. These links can be adjustable depending on how you want to play, depending on what you feel is the strongest. This one is good for me. I just happen to have one, so I just chucked it in there. Multi-strike, of course, if you want to get the Awaken multi-strike and go big dick, by all means do so. It's way too expensive. I don't want to do it. I've done wave 30 plenty of times with this setup, so it doesn't matter to me. And finally, Awaken added elemental damage. I just had one, so I put it in here. You could use the normal one. It really doesn't give you that much. The only benefit is at level 5, you of course become immune to reflect damage. So if you want to run a Ziri or something like that on this build, then you can do that with a level 5 Awakened Awakened elemental damage. But mine hasn't leveled yet, so not so much of a big deal. Then we have Determination, of course, to get that big armor that we got going on, along with Grace for the fact that we are also energy or iron reflexes within the build. That does help quite considerably, and like I said, the Enlighten 3, and Discipline to get us more energy shield. That, pretty much a no-brainer there for the 4 auras. Defiance Banner to get even more energy shield, because why not? We use Reckoning, Rage, and Culling Strike. This is something that was just suggested, and I don't really know if I kind of fully support it. It's really not helpful when it comes to bossing and stuff like that. Culling Strike is nice, but the Rage is kind of there just for that build up in simulacrums, the girth you can get from that. You could maybe run Berserk and make use of it a little bit better, but I don't know. This is whatever to me. I think I could change this for something and be just fine. We got Ancestral Protector with multi-totems, Ancestral War Chief. That is, of course, how we summon both sets of the protectors and get that giant damage boost from that. We got Tempest Shield because that's giving us our spell block. That is why we go Glancing Blows, along with Molten Shell, Punishment, and Cast on Damage Taken. Because we are already setting resistances down, the best kind of case scenario is Punishment. So whenever we're fighting or hitting something big, Cast on Damage Taken goes off. We trigger Punishment, they take more damage. It's pretty good. It works as you would expect. For some reason, I figured mine should be at level 8 and 11, but you could change this. Keep leveling at it if you feel like you have a long enough punishment where you take enough damage. Depending on what you're fighting, of course, that might be the case. As far as what upgrades you could do, well, actually, let's go over the Flask. Flasks is important, and the important part about Flask is gain charges when hit by an enemy. These keep me topped off all the time. I basically never have to worry about not being flasked up because I'm getting hit rapidly enough as I am block and I am armor based. I'm just getting hit anyway because I'm in their face doing the stuff. Don't have to worry about it. So these are the rolls you want. I got some 7s, some 3s, some 5s, some 6, 5s. They all basically stay up the whole time. You can make do with your flask however you want. You want the armor double up on there. You want the evasion double up on there. You can put them on any other flask, but I just like them having on the same flask. Attack speed is, of course, lovely. Corrupting blood immunity, lovely as well, along with the sulfur flask for a little bit more damage and some burning removal because I was just getting burned a little bit here and there, so I figured that was the best way to do about that. Now, let's talk gear upgrades. Like I said, tier 1 of any of these, get a tier 1 intelligence belt, then craft it to be mega dick. That will give you a massive boost, of course, with the advent of giving you a very expensive setup. Then you could go for synthesis tier 1 intelligence rings and then try to get the resistances on there. Once again, massive boost there for both of those if you get them both to go. Doryani's with minus lightning will give you a little bit more flexibility, and the big thing that will give you, if you do get the minus lightning Doryani's, you could probably go and make yourself an actual amulet instead of an Astramentus. Go for a awakened smash between a intelligence and an attributes, and then try to get, something on there that's also good. That would be a really big upgrade. Of course, getting a bigger helmet with more energy shield and the actual flicker strike damage or any of those things, if you want to do that, would be a massive upgrade as well. Along with maybe gaining your extra mana on a Aegis Aura as energy shield if you want to get even thicker. That would be huge. Getting another one of these for intelligence and maximum energy shield would be another big upgrade. Like I said, though, I've done about 10 wave 30 simulacrums at this point on this build, and it really isn't a problem. I don't really have any issues with it. I can get in there, I can do the content, no problem at all. I fail maybe 2 out of 15 or so, I think, in the ones I've done, because of small changes that the modifiers put on me that are pretty hard to deal with. So one of the reasons I do have a lightning strike in here, it is an almost valid lightning strike. I bought it just to try it out. It's not really worth it for me. I'm gonna sell it. But the reason I have lightning strike in here is if I get a similar outcome with the minus lightning minus charges modifier, it's very hard to flicker strike bosses in that, so I do swap the lightning strike for that, and along with some other modifiers, like if I have a massive amount of damage and I want to be a little bit further back, then I swap to that with inspiration. So take out Divergent Melee Splash, flicker strike, put these in instead. You can use a very normal lightning strike, don't need an anomalous, just go ahead and save yourself the money. These are also really expensive. Like I said, for the most part, this build has been all about how to be as cheap as possible. Personally, for me, when I leveled the build, I went the basic level of this one, so the Hand of Thought and Motion, right from the get-go, and just leveled up as Lightning Strike. Yeah, I think I went Smite, Lightning Strike, but you could just do Smite, you could do whatever you want. And I just did the travel right from the start, so I just started traveling and traveling. I put in the Fertile Mile and kept traveling and traveling and traveling, picked up this, kept traveling, traveling. Kept going, came all the way down here, picked up the reservations, picked up Elemental Overload, and then went down here, picked up the stuff here. I didn't put the Threads of Hope in until I was like way later on, but I just basically traveled the beginning of the tree and didn't really care about the most efficient way of doing it. There's probably much better leveling setups. You could probably do a better job if you just respec, go some of the elemental nodes here, and then unspec out of them, keep going, and then grab yourself a bit more life, make it easier for you, do that kind of stuff. I level like an idiot, so that's what I did and didn't really worry about it. The first thing I picked up was Rapid Assault, and then I went Avatar of Chase, and then I went into Way the Poacher and Avatar of Slaughter, because that was just the quickest way through the campaign. Onslaught permanently being on your character is very nice, and I do recommend it. I think I've basically covered everything. Sorry, I tried to like condense this video down as much as possible because there's a lot to this, but hopefully I covered everything. If there's any more questions, let me know. I will be more than happy to answer them in the comments down below. And I really recommend it. I really recommend checking out a Doryani's prototype build while Scourge is still in the state that it's in. With the minus lightning resistances we currently have, it's really nice to get sweet gear like this, just to get that minus lightning, get that easy minus 200. Last league, I had to do an Olympic ring of 7 or 6 threads of hope to get myself to minus 200 and then balance out the resistances. This league, just get yourself some minus lightning resist. Bam, done. That's all you need. You're good to go. So I highly recommend checking out builds like this right now. They're a lot of fun, and they can do all the content very well, to the point that there's some clips of me AFKing Kosises and things on while getting some tea in the middle of wave 26 Summer Arkham. So that's, you know, good stuff. Definitely check it out. Hopefully this was informative. Hopefully this was good. Hopefully you, want to make the build. Thanks for watching. Peace.